hello, my name is Kira. This is my brother Josh. He
Hello.
is the ex-leaguer that I told you about who would be able to have like an interesting conversation about Arcane now that I've finished the series. So, Josh, I'd let you introduce yourself, but I think all that they need to know about you is that for Christmas I was like, hey, I'm into Arcane. That would be really cool. And he decided that little matching baby girl heart pins of Jayce and Victor was really what I needed. Life.
That's our product placement. Buy it on Etsy.
Yes, support your local creative channel. So that's our relationship right now. Anyway, so Josh, so as a former leaguer, first of all, what I want to ask is what were you surprised about with certain characters and what their arcs ended up being in the show versus what they are like during the game?
Yeah.
And I think I'm gonna get I see a lot of anger online over Warwick.
Okay. Yeah. Warwick was pretty different. Something to be clear about with League lore for people who aren't initiated is that it's very much in flux, right? Like they had original lore for a lot of characters that was based on this whole idea that there was an in-universe Summoner's Rift, and it was a tournament of the best champions, and that was basically totally removed so that the characters had their own stories, but sort of what they were doing in the game wasn't meaningful within the canon of the world at all, which generally I think made for a more consistent lore canon. And there's still some characters that are on their old lore version because the roster's huge, and so it's very kind of patchwork in that regard. And now there's Arcane, and Arcane is taking some of those characters that had been changed, and now it's changing them again, and it's making new versions. And so when you talk about the idea of what the old canon Warwick was, you have to understand that also is a new canon to something else that might have existed a while ago and stuff like that. So and to be clear, I'm not the most versed person in League lore. I sort of know enough as you do as someone who plays it for a while and gets familiar with it and knows the characters, but I'm not a lore aficionado. I haven't read a lot of the short stories, stuff like that sort of fleshes out the world. But Warwick's pretty different. Obviously he's very he's dog-like in the game. He's pretty much just a straight werewolf with a chemical tank on him, so having him be this kind of ape-like humanoid.
Was Warwick once human?
Warwick was once human. The idea that he was a person that had been experimented on by Singed, who is just called the Doctor, and I think she's called the Doctor. I don't think they actually call him Singed
his
ever.
name is Singed.
He's credited as Singed. I don't know if anyone actually.
I had to look it up.
I don't know if anyone actually calls him that in the show, but I know the credits call him Singed. But the idea that he was made by Singed, was true in the lore as it existed. But the idea that he was Vander or related to Vi and Jinx, I think is pretty much a new creation of the show.
So when you were watching season 1, were you who the F is this Vander guy? Where's
Vander wasn't a character. I wasn't oh, that's future Warwick. I do know that there were people that predicted at the time season 1 aired that he was going to be Warwick, because there's hints people refer to him with dog terms weirdly frequently. They're oh, they called you the Hound was on, and they play Warwick's Sting at one point when Silco's I'll show you what you can really be or whatever. And so there were hints that it was going to happen. So I think that for people who were really following along, it wasn't a surprise. But it is true that the Warwick that exists in Arcane doesn't look like the Warwick that has existed in League of Legends for a long time.
And he certainly didn't adopt Vi and Jinx.
No,
and
that was not. That's
a tiny little girl named Isha.
Correct. Yeah, that was a new thing. Isha is brand new. She's not a character that's existed in the lore, as far as I know, in any capacity.
So then I know that there are definitely characters who were closer to what they were. I know Caitlyn is still a cop from Arcane.
Caitlyn is still a cop.
She's still a cop, but she's less of a pin-up girl.
She's less of a pin-up girl, right? Yeah, she and Vi have been enforcers together. That was kind of their dynamic.
And gay.
Well, that wasn't a League supplied thing. It's just a very, very popular fandom thing, which they then canonized in Arcane. They're probably the most popular ship in League. I mean, I can't really think of anything that would come close to that.
Now, because of the Runeterra, that it was the card game.
The card game Legends of Runeterra, which also did redesigns of characters
that
prior
had
to Arcane.
Some voice lines, right? And I think there was some stuff that hinted to Echo and Jayce actually being a romance.
Being romantic? Honestly, I don't remember that. It's certainly possible it might exist. Coming into it, I was not pre-exposed to think there was going to be an Echo Jayce romance. That wasn't something I was expecting.
And of course, so there's like the League, alternative universe where several of them are pop stars.
Right. Well, the skin lines are all their own universes, right? I mean, so KDA is like the most popular. Well, it's most popular like outside of League. Some people who don't play League are definitely most familiar with. But technically, all of the skin lines have their own lore to some degree that recast them in different lights. More or less. They're generally not taken as seriously as the core ones, but.
Because I gotta say, so some of those skins are ridiculous looking.
Yeah. Well, some of them in a good way, and some of them less intentionally. I don't know. Did you know Echo was in like an alternative band like KDA? They did like a True Damage. Was the name of it? You're familiar?
I was going through the main characters. I was checking out their different skins. And like, raiding them and making fun of how bad some of them were.
Yeah. Well, Echo's a more modern character, so he probably has a relatively decent
No, we were looking at Jayce, don't worry.
At Jayce. Jayce has changed a lot. Mostly in that he became, like, a character. Because, because in League, he's just, like... Well, I mean, he's just this very generic, like, white guy with a staff.
Okay. He doesn't have a staff, he's got a hammer. Right?
Hammer, whatever.
No, I gotta say, it's like with Christian, whatever his face. I'm kind of saying
whatever's his face.
One of the creators.
Oh, okay.
Saying that like Jayce is like his stand-in. You're like Jayce is the most generic white guy there is.
Well, I think in League at least, because in League like he's called the Defender of Tomorrow is his subtitle, and he's just kind of this like good inventor, which is like sort of the foil to Victor's evil inventor, and that's pretty much as deep as it is as far as I know. He's not, I wouldn't just describe him as a particularly interesting character. I think he was one of the more blank slates that existed coming into Arcane.
Was he like one of the OG characters?
No, he was added later, but he is fairly old. So like Echo is a much more recent character, for example. He definitely had like a more consistent and fleshed out lore like from the moment he was introduced. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of other characters, like they were also old, but like had a much stronger, I think, sense of character as well as like a following. So like I would say Vi, Caitlyn, like they all fall into that category where it's like they weren't necessarily like modern characters, but they're definitely characters that people had a connection to, like the character. There are people who play Jayce, but I don't know anyone who was like, Jayce is my favorite because he's such a zany, cool guy, right? Like he was just very...
Jayce, baby girl.
So he was one of the characters that even though he did exist in League, I felt like they really had free reign to kind of do with him essentially whatever they want, because like outside of like the hammer gun, which was like his thing, he really didn't have any real difference. He also, I think, in Arcane looks significantly younger than he looks in League.
He looks very interesting.
I would say he looks like a middle-aged guy, like in League, and he looks like Metro Man from Megamind.
I wish that wasn't true.
If you can add a picture of Metro Man, people will know I'm right. If you compare them side by side.
He ends the series in his early 30s, right?
In Arcane?
In Arcane.
I would think so. There's probably canon somewhere, but he looks. I would place him in like his 40s in League.
Yeah.
And he's apparently dead in Arcane lore. I don't know, but
I don't know. I'm preferring to think of like ejected into a different
alternate
universe,
dimension kind of
thing.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. It's kind of the same thing as Heimerdinger. There was he just kind of popped, and I wasn't sure what was up with that. But maybe we can get back to that. But
yeah,
I'm just rambling. What was the original question? The stage.
League characters and how they were.
League characters and how they were different.
So
okay.
like, who like did like. I'm gonna go with. Well, obviously, a lot of characters I think were very different. Like Jinx.
Well, I mean, Jayce is really different in that she's like, I had the same thing I said about Jayce. Well, like, I would say that, I mean, like, in League, of course, your characters only really exist in the sense that they are, like, a splash art and a model and some animations abilities and, like, a little bit of text descriptions and voice lines. Like, there's not actually a lot to work with from, like, a characterization standpoint because it's, like, a repeatable online game. It's not, like, a game that has its own arc or story. And so, like, in League, Jinx is, like, a little bit like one-dimensional because she's just kind of like a maniacal, crazy criminal, right? But that's like, that's not an insult. It's just like that's kind of the amount of fleshing out you get for a character that has to be like totally static and that you only get these kind of really brief interactions with.
Yeah.
And so like in Arcane, she's still like this kind of wild criminal, but she's a lot more like she has like a motivation and an arc and stuff changes. Like I think that while she is different, I would say that the Jinx is presented in Arcane more or less, I do think, feels like a reasonable translation of the character that exists in the video games. That didn't feel like they were just taking her and like making a new character or anything. Like I think that the two that changed the most were by far Warwick and Jayce, and probably Singed.
Is Singed really different?
Well,
I gotta say that guy walked out of there just like. If you just walk, don't run, they won't stop you, and then you get away with everything.
I think Singed is the only guy who got like everything he wanted at the end of the show.
And he did everything bad. It was like, wow, something bad's about to happen. I wonder who I can blame for this.
And then he has his daughter, which is now Oriana. That's another lead character. Are you familiar with that whole?
Not at all.
Okay, so at the end there's his daughter who comes out like mechanical, like Victor.
Victor was making
That is definitely Oriana, who is another lead character who has been a robot girl for forever, and like they did, but that lore is very different because she was not tied to Singed previously. She like has like a father character who like exists in her lore, but she was just like an automaton. I think that was made to like replicate her inventor's daughter or whatever. But
so when you saw Singed with his daughter, was it kind of like?
Not immediately. It was only at the end when she like turned mechanical, and I was like, "Oh, that's it." If you're smarter than me, you probably could have picked it up when he was talking to Victor. That was where it was going. So that's kind of new. But I mean, Singed is one where like, again, I don't know if anything happened that really like contradicts his established lore, just because established lore isn't really that deep. But like, he is a very goofy looking character in the existing game. Like, I don't know if you looked at him, but he's like this.
Yeah, no.
He's got these like bandages and this like bulwark shield, and he's like a very memey character. And his lore, I don't think, goes a lot deeper than like he is an evil mad scientist, you know. So like.
So there's like Jayce the good sscientist, Victor the bad scientist, and
then there's
like
an even more evil scientist.
The eviler.
Yeah. He's like the evil scientist stripped of like communism like parallels, which is what Victor has.
Glorious evolution for me.
Yeah, he's the fascist evil scientist to Victor's communist evil scientist, but
distinction.
I mean, he's like one of the like most like generically evil characters in League, and like, well, he is definitely not a good guy in Arcane. Like, I do think that they've given him a more like understandable like arc and motivation, and he's like more of an actual character to the point that like I kind of needed the credits to confirm that he was supposed to be Singed, just because like
he wasn't just an evil bastard. Okay.
Right.
And I'm going to assume that the Victor in League of Legends never turned into this cosmic deity of...
No, Victor is pretty different, and I think a lot of people were... Well, so I don't know if you're aware, but they actually they changed how Victor looks in League. They did a visual update for his character.
Yeah. I saw some of the splash art.
Yeah, so that was like one of those things where like I feel like people saw where he was at the end of season 1, and they were kind of like, okay, I'm trying to figure out how he's going to get to where he's going to be in season 2, and then the results, he actually didn't quite get to the same place. He got similar. He still became like this kind of inhuman looking entity with the third arm. Like that all was the same, but like his actual appearance is quite different. I think the nature of his revolution is very different, just because like historically it's been much more about like nuts and bolts kind of machines, and now it's this like arcane machinery, which is a little bit different.
So much more magic.
Much more magical than he was. Like definitely a very like tech driven character.
Yeah, I know that like what I got from the lore was that he and Jayce are like perpetually like pissed off at each other.
Right, they're just kind of like they're fighting each other, and
he's like the Zon character, and Jayce is the
Piltover character. And Jayce is good because he's from Piltover,
and Zon is bad.
Yeah, pretty much.
And he's got like a golem friend.
Does he?
Apparently he has got a golem, but then Jayce causes like the wrecked or something.
Maybe.
I don't know.
He doesn't have a golem in game.
I just know that he's like, you know, the making robots person and kind of replaced a lot of his own body with robots.
Yeah, he's more prosthetics. I think something that Arcane does.
Arcane, yeah, it's like he got infused with the hex core.
Right. In general, it sort of takes the hyper advanced tech and the magic, and it makes those kind of the same thing. Whereas, like, I think in the League lore initially, those were much more distinct, which is partially because League lore is a bunch of different tropes sort of stitched together. And so you've got, like, in the different regions, you can really see the scenes where it's like, okay, like, Piltover is like a steampunk sci-fi world, right? And that is in the same continent, but not really related to necessarily some of the other regions. And I think that by trying to make it so that the magic and the tech are sort of the same thing, it's trying to reel that in a little bit so that it feels like there's a little bit more of a consistent universe as opposed to just being like, this region is magic and this place has crazy steampunk tech and those are just like separate advancements that aren't tied to each other.
Nothing ever leaks over at all.
Nothing leaks over at all, and then you go to the Bilgewater and it's just like Pirates of the Caribbean and there's like.
Where did you played the frog guy?
I did. I played Tom Kench, who would be in the Pirates of the Caribbean region because he's wet.
Yeah.
There's
nobody wet anywhere else.
No, well, yeah. So I'm not sure he's going to translate to the modern universe. I'm not really sure how you'd integrate him into a show at all.
How much would you pay to have Tom Kench?
I would love to see him in a show. I mean, I loved him in League.
I think, did you love him because you loved playing him, or because you loved the meme of playing him and annoying other people by the fact that you were playing him?
I liked him. I like everything about him. I mean, he's kind of
You like defeating people when you were playing as Tom Kench.
There's an argument that he's kind of a racist stereotype, which is not great, but like, other than that.
Other than the racism.
Other than the racism, I just thought I enjoyed him a lot as a character. It's a really great theme, and I just like his voice lines and stuff. But
okay, so definitely, but so Singed changed a lot. Warwick changed a lot. Jayce grew a personality and a beard.
Jayce became like a character.
He kind of got a character when he got the beard.
Well, he had a character before that too. I mean, he was pretty white. He was still pretty just like white bread, but like I think that
despite
the first season
not being white, but
did a lot to make him interesting by throwing him into the world of Piltover. Like I really liked a lot of his interactions with Mel, where it was like he's this sort of very like he's not. I wouldn't call him by the books necessarily, because he was like breaking the law to like do his experimentations and stuff. But like he has a very like firm sense of right.
That he did.
What?
Well, except at the time that he did, and then got put on trial.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I wouldn't call him straight-laced, because he did break the law, right? But I think that in general, he's someone who has like a very sort of strong sense of like what right and wrong is, and he's like, in his case, like he's, he thinks that he believes in technology and all this other stuff. But then like when he interacts with Mel, and she's kind of like, things are a little bit different. You kind of make these concessions, and you play in people's egos, and you have to be like smart as well as right, and that makes you succeed. I like that a lot. Although that was an element that was really good in season 1, which I think was a little bit absent in season 2.
Yeah, well, I do really love Mel. Of course, she's not in League at all.
No, Mel's not in League at all.
And I think they're really trying to make her a character who wouldn't be in League.
I think by the end of season 2, it seems that they want her to be in League. And Bessa also is in League now, but wasn't at the time that she appeared in season 1.
So, did they add her because of the show, or did they know that she was coming?
I think they added her because of the show.
That's interesting that they would add in Bessa and not Mel.
Well, I think at the time Bessa was more obviously a fighter than Mel was.
Yeah.
But
that's just okay. Savika, does she exist?
No, Savika's not in League. But she obviously could be. I mean, she's
put her in that with that arm. Come on.
I love Savika. Savika's one of my favorites.
Well, I love the idea that you would have to gamble
with like the slot machine
every time. The slot machine every time.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm gonna attack this time. But it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. No, she's really great, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see. I think her and Mel are both characters that might one day be added to League. I think that's very reasonable.
Silco, is Silco ever?
No, Silco's not in League.
Okay, so a ton of characters who are really, I think, thematically important are...
Yeah, there's a lot of new inventions, and I think that's totally appropriate. I actually think it's better that way, because I don't think that... I feel like trying to make a show where all of the important characters are champions in League of Legends. It's kind of like making a jukebox musical where, you kind of have to massage the story to make it fit the parts that you have. And I think that they made the right move by having some of these important characters and saying, like, yeah, we need to invent Vander, we need to invent Silco, we need to invent, like the cops and Caitlyn's parents and all these other characters that are really important to the story because, to be in League, it's kind of prerequisite that you're a fighter, but our story needs non-fighters that still play an important role in it.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't have been surprised to have like a Silco character on kind of the more.
I'm not sure what he would do.
He would be corporate evil.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I don't know. He would inject people with drugs when they come close to him.
Yeah, he's not much of a fighter, but I don't imagine I can't envision Silco being added to League, but
I don't know.
I guess we would see. I guess you were asking earlier about sort of how characters are adapted or what I was surprised by. In general, one thing I'll mention is that the characters that exist in League, I sort of was under the impression that they represent relatively stable aspects of those characters, right? Like when you have like Victor, it represents like Victor in his prime and the core of what he does or whatever. And what surprised me in Arcane is that we came to find out that these apparently represent the characters for a period of about 2 days during their life, right?
We're gonna hit this.
Or in the case of Echo, a period of about 40 seconds. There's a right because he's got his kind of iconic like popsicle looking stick that he uses to smack people, right? That's his weapon in League. I'd say it's fairly iconic, which he picks up as a clock hand during the final battle with Victor. And so he only actually possesses both the Z drive and the weapon for about 40 seconds while he's like skateboarding towards Victor and then
it's okay.
Explodes.
Victor speedruns the whole villain thing anyway. So I guess we'll move on to Arcane now that we've talked about League a little bit. So, Season 1 and Season 2. I think for Season 2, I definitely would have said that there was so much going on that I think that they could have easily just like cut a bunch of the B plots. Or, like, as you said, Mel and Ambessa were both completely made up for the show. And so I think that they, like, as much as I love Mel, I really do, I think that she and Ambessa could have been cut as a B-plot. Like, there are possible ways that they could have just focused on having other characters. I love Ambessa as a villain. Like, I think she has a lot of complexity, but, like, the whole Black Rose thing added so much that didn't even then get explored.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I guess before we kind of launch into this, like, it's prerequisite to mention that this is done because there's going to be more shows and
blah,
the
blah,
Black
blah,
Rose is going to play into
stuff.
the... Well, I mean, I don't think it's... Like, I do really believe that they're, passionate creators that are trying to make something good. And I think they're trying to set up for the next show. But, yes, I do think that... I think that Season 2 of Arcane suffered from setting up tie-ins to a subsequent show that doesn't exist yet. And I think that the Black Rose was the plot that is obviously most directly tied to that. I agree with you that, like, I think you could cut Mel and Ambessa and have a story that still, like, functionally works, right? That still gets the plot points. I really like both of them, and I think that they enriched Season 1 a lot. And so I don't think I would want to see a version that cut those characters, but I'd like to see a version where...
I would like to see a version with Season 2 and Season 3 where they could have actually fleshed out, like, those... things.
Yeah, or where just where they took a different direction. Like I guess I'll not bury the lead. I really did not like what they did with Mel. I liked Mel a lot in Season 1, and obviously at the end of Season 1 on the cliffhanger, it was like, oh my god, is Mel going to be dead coming to Season 2?
Yeah, because she's not a character.
Because she's not a character, and like the last shot of Season 1 was like her with like her back to like the rocket, like colliding into things. It was like, is she going to be dead?
Turned out she has magic powers.
And she has magic powers, but she was also sort of like. It's like she lived, and then she was sort of functionally killed off because she wasn't there at all.
I know, she wasn't there for like 3 episodes, and it was like, I wonder where Mel is.
Right, and her relationship with Jayce just like stopped existing. And when I say relationship...
No, he got to blame her. He got to come back and be like, it's your fault, you treated us like asses. She was like, yeah, because you were, dumbass.
Yeah, I mean, and just to be clear, when I say their relationship, I don't necessarily care about their like actual romance, like whatever. But I think that they had a really interesting dynamic, right? About her sort of like coaching Jayce in like the power of politics of Piltover, and I think that
showing how good she was at it.
Yeah, and she had a relationship with Victor as well that is dropped when she dies, and so I just think that, or well, she doesn't die, but she's functionally
But
killed.
when she leaves and he does his thing, which.
Right, so she goes and has her little Black Rose plot, and then shows up and is a mage, and I just ultimately I found her more cool when she was like just a really smart human instead of like someone who has magic powers, and I don't know, I agree. I think that she's definitely a more league-able character now that she has like magic fighting abilities, but I think that she went from being like one of my favorite characters being someone that I just felt like I was wasting time every time that we were like on her subplot.
Yeah, I mean, I do get wanting to, you know, it's going to be such an obscure reference, like nobody's going to get it, but when we were watching Tales of Hysteria, and like they were having a time crunch, and then they took an entire episode to have an episode to backstory something else.
Yeah,
that felt like what they were doing with the Black Rose half the time.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair, and it's just I also felt like, I mean, again, I really liked Ambessa in season 1. I think she's a really interesting character.
Such a powerful.
She's a
character,
cool.
oh my God.
Yeah, but I felt like I kind of like she a little bit cannibalized season 2. Like she took like a way bigger role in it than I expected her to. And especially because of the way that her story ties into like Black Rose shenanigans, like the power plots back to Noxus, it kind of felt like the Piltover and Zahn story was a little bit taken over by this like Noxus narrative, which felt weird because I don't think it was necessary at all. Like I don't think Victor needed Ambessa to like lead him along to go do.
Well, she didn't lead Victor. She led Kate.
Right. She led Kate, which
and
I mean,
I don't think that they wanted to have Kate become a dictator on her own.
Well, I mean, I don't.
Which is reasonable.
I think that's fairly appropriate for her. It's just more like in the end, like the final battle or whatever, right? Is like it's very much headed by Ambessa, at least in the front that all the characters we care about, that we mostly care about, or I shouldn't say that. Okay, we care about all the characters. We care about all characters. But do you want to give final episode stuff here briefly, or do you want to come back to that?
Well, it was just like the final episode felt like, you know, we had 3 final battles, and I really like it when I can just focus on one.
What are our 3 final battles?
We had we had Jinx and Vi and Vander who goes nuts.
And we had Caitlyn and Ambessa.
Caitlyn versus Ambessa and with Mel.
With Mel.
And then there was Victor and Jayce and
Echo
and like the entire universe.
Right. Okay, sure. I see the 3 now. Yeah.
It was like those 3 things all had to wrap up.
Right. Well, and it's weird because I mean, so and I want to be clear. Like I guess overall, I like season 2.
Yeah. No, it's like we're not haters. When we talk about stuff and we talk and get negative, it's because we know that it could have been better.
Yeah, I like season 2 a lot, and I think it did a lot of stuff that was very cool, and I liked a lot of its developments. But
it's still better than like 95% of the television.
Yeah, there's just some things about the way specific elements were handled that I didn't like very much. And I think that one of these things that was kind of weird was in the end of the show. Well, Arcane has a lot of characters to balance, which is obviously a challenge, but like the main characters are Vi and Jinx. Yes. Right? Those are our leads. They're the ones whose story has been falling through.
And did it feel like Vi did absolutely nothing this season except get broken up with?
I mean, she does some other stuff, but she's definitely not like a super active force in her own story. But I think that the final battle especially has this kind of weird feeling where like they're resolving the conflicts roughly in order of like their import, right? Yeah. And it ends with Victor and Jayce, who are obviously very important characters, and I actually really liked how they wrapped up their
I thought they were good.
I actually thought the way that was handled overall I really liked. But there's this awkward thing the show has to deal with the fact that the final most important conflict doesn't involve any of our main characters. And so then like that concludes and it's kind of like, but Machine Warwick is still active and we have to have this like weird double fake out death moment like where you think Vi's gonna die, and then you think Jinx is dead, but then maybe she's alive at the end or whatever.
No,
And
she's totally alive at the end.
But it felt like, and that was weird too, because like we just saw all of the automatons like shut down, and so Warwick like breaks the rules in order to like have a final conflict, which feels very like half-assed.
Yeah.
And it's there because they need the show to end with the main characters, but the main characters aren't involved in the actual like final conflict.
Yeah, it's like why couldn't we find a way to make all the characters matter in the final like? That's why I would have said like draw this over
like
draw
3
this
seasons
over
or
3
whatever.
seasons, because then I feel especially like Victor would have benefited from it, because he's okay, the audience knows that Victor's my favorite character.
Yeah.
It's like he speedruns that like benevolent Jesus guy to bad guy thing so quick.
He does. I mean, he does get shot, which
he does
like
get shot, Jayce.
it's fair. Jayce mistook him for a Zonite child and had to, his instincts took over. But
it's also kind of like got that. I mean, the idea of him like giving up his own humanity and basically saying, yeah, singed, cool, whatever, turn me into your little salamander. And
right.
then glorious evolution. Like we literally saw him as that form for an episode. Yes, he did walk around like the slutty little robot for a little bit. That was an interesting conversation.
You mean like when he came out and it was like,
yeah.
you should wear clothes?
And then it was like, and then like lock Jayce between your legs and grab his head like this and be like, hi, want to be partners again? That's what I do to all my friends. I turn into a robot.
Yeah, so I guess maybe...
But yes, anyway, but then when it's like when he's all like, why do you persist after everything I've done? And it's kind of like, that's not too much yet. I mean, on the scale of, like, you to Mbessa, you're definitely, like, on the low side here, buddy. Like, you're not as bad as you think you're such a bad boy. You're not really that bad.
Yeah. So...
You got the coolest form, though. I'll give you that. You look good.
What I'll say is, going into the season, I was not under the impression that the goal was to wrap up the storyline for every single character. Like, obviously, coming from League, I knew where Victor was headed, and I knew, in particular, Victor and Echo both had a lot of stuff that needed to happen to them to get them from where we left them at the end of Season 1 to where they exist in the canon in League of Legends.
A lot of bad things happened to them.
And I wasn't assuming that we were going to totally do both of their stories in Season 2. I sort of thought that they were going to be maybe slightly more incidental characters to the plot of Arcane, and that we were going to wrap up the Vi Jinx stuff, and that they were maybe going to be, like, ending the show, like, moving towards their final moments, right? Like,
maybe this...
Like, like, maybe, like, the show ends with, like, Victor being fully mechanized, but not being, like, evil mechanized yet, right? Or, like, it ends with Echo, like, having the tools to make the Z drive or whatever, but he hasn't actually made it yet.
So they'd be characters in potentia of their final forms.
Right, and I thought that maybe if you had like a subsequent series, it'd be like, now this is going to be the one that's like about Victor doing his stuff. And
or Season 3, yeah.
Right, like a Season 3 or something, but that the focus would be on trying to wrap up the Vi Jinx stuff. And so I was a little bit surprised when, like, honestly, every episode they kept adding new stuff, and they kept being like, whoa, we're going to do this too, we're going to do this too. And then like on top of that, I was like surprised that they were going to do the whole thing. They were going to do the whole Machine Herald run. They're going to do the whole Z Drive thing, and it ended up feeling very rushed, I think. Now, and with Victor especially, I don't actually think it was necessarily done badly. Like as much as
quickly.
It was done really quickly.
That's my thing. I don't think that it was done bad, but it was done very quickly.
And I think that the victim here really is that we lose a lot of like character moments, and that Season 2 ends up skipping over a lot of stuff through montage in order to get it through, and having a very kind of mechanical like plot to plot focus in order to get to everything it needs, with the exception of the very best episode, which fixes this by ripping them out of the current timeline and putting them in a parallel timeline where their actions largely, obviously do make the Z drive, but other than that, largely don't have consequences on the main canon. And you're allowed to just have a character-driven episode, and it's the best episode of the show.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
No, it absolutely
we
is.
We didn't pre-script this.
No.
Just I felt like we were on the same page, but
no. No. Episode 2 is just it's
2?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know which number it is, but it's the one where...
Oh, no. Oh my god. That always broke my freaking heart when he was like, can you pretend it's like the first time?
Yeah, no, I love that so much. As much as, like I said, I didn't come in thinking Echo Jinx was like a thing at all, but like that like little sequence just did so much, and I was like, I ship it. I ship Echo Powder. Like, whatever. Like,
I felt like a bit of an idiot because I went back and I was like, oh, Victor talked about like how Jayce had someone else in controlling him. He was so Victor heard the mage. Victor heard that's who he heard. And then I was like freaking out over it. She's like, you're supposed to that's the mage that Victor heard. It's like, oh god damn, I'm gonna look so stupid in the reaction.
Yeah, I briefly mentioned I do think it is hilarious that like the juxtaposition of the alternate dimension experiences of Jayce versus Heimer and Echo, where
I'm like having kind of my cute high school.
I'm having my meet cute and Jayce is just an actual hell for the entire duration. Yeah,
but he kind of comes out hot, so it's okay. It's like the sacrifices we make
that's
to
true.
grow a beard.
I don't think we're going to talk about Heimer very much, so I just briefly want to mention Heimer while we're here. One, I think his song slaps. I really, it was crazy how good that was.
He plays such a role in season 1, and then when Jayce, like, sort of, like, that's such a moment. You know, that's such a, like, oh my god, Jayce. Oh. Like, for me, when he votes to get Heimerdinger out of there, like, in his own self-interest, basically, so that Heimerdinger will stop messing with Hextech.
Yeah.
I mean, that was such a moment for me of just like, oh, he's been corrupted by politics, and this is
right.
Because he had the nice parallel between, you know, Victor literally, like, selling his body to the Hex Core, and Jayce kind of giving up everything that he had of his ideals in order to kind of be able to forward his own ideas,
right.
and Heimerdinger like represented that for me.
Yeah.
And then of course he gets to go down to the Undercity and be like, oh, like, this will be like a fun little game for me.
He just enjoys his retirement for the rest of the show. He was...
Well, I mean, because he doesn't need it, and then it turns out that the children are not like fascinated by the little gizmos he makes because they're too busy with trying to survive. And then I think he gets like a little bit of a wake up call.
Right, because Heimer's not totally right about everything, right? Because
no.
like he's obviously like in the League lore he's like a Yordle. This is true in the shows. They live for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Right, there's a moment where he's like, give it another decade or two and it'll be ready for beginning testing.
Victor,
and it's like,
I'm dying in 2 months.
Right, yeah, like we need to just tell people that are alive currently, and so I think that's true. But I think I like Heimer a lot. I thought his role was kind of shifting to be like Echo's mentor was good. Obviously, there's a strong through line from like his very first appearances in season 1 where he's like it's about helping your students and
and I love that you did get the transition of like, this is Jayce, my former pupil, and this is Echo, my current pupil.
Yeah.
But then they just blink him out of existence.
Right, exactly. And then and I was left like, so is he dead or what? And
he's third wheeling Jason Victor,
like,
whatever.
and I'm not clear if he's dead or not. And in the League lore, it's all like, well, when Yordles die, they respawn in Bandle City, which is Yordle Town. And I hope that is not true. I really hope that when they update the lore, they remove that. I think Bandle City is the biggest mistake in the lore of League of Legends. I'm still mad that it was the last region in Legends of Runeterra.
Are you
for
sure?
everyone who cares about that.
I think that Smurfville sounds like
right. I think that's really dumb. So, anyways, I heard people. This is an aside, but people were like, because Yordles respawn in Yordle Town, Smeech is going to come after Sevica. Smeech being the Yordle with the arms.
Yes.
And I was like, please don't. I really... Or lean into it. We'll have a whole show about Smeech coming back to life and trying to kill Sevica over and over and over again. But anyways, my other theory... I was going to say, my other theory is that Heimerdinger did live But then when Echo time traveled back more than 4 seconds in the final conflict, somewhere in an alternate dimension, Heimerdinger just exploded. And that's why he's dead now. That's the very specific consequence. You get back more than 4 seconds, Heimerdinger explodes.
Singing his song.
Right.
Just let the wheel.
Yeah. Wherever he is, he just explodes if the Z-Drive goes back more than 4 seconds. So that was really weird. I'm not sure why they...
I feel like they just didn't know
what to do with him, and they're like, we should just explode him for no reason.
Is he just gonna be like hanging on to Echo's leg as Echo rides along with us?
I don't know. I mean, it feels like he really didn't do that much beforehand either. Like, I think
he had put his little goggles down and just holding on to Echo's leg while Echo goes and throws the Z-Drive in his face.
I feel like I don't know. I would have probably preferred him just to be...
Those are my former pupils!
tucked away somewhere, like... I don't know, very weird. So that's our Heimerdinger discussion. I'm not sure what they did with him, but
yeah, I think that was one where they just were like I don't know, because it wasn't even like a sacrifice that really meant anything.
No, because it was kind of
like
yeah, they made up the rule that somebody has to sacrifice themselves, I guess, and then he did, but I didn't understand that was what was happening, and I didn't know he was dead.
But they did that with like several characters where they just dropped them, like Savita, like she was so important for Jinx's storyline. Up until she got Isha out of the prison. And then those two, never interacted again the entire season. Speaking of Jayce.
This is a potential segue for another subplot that we could talk about pruning, which is Isha. So Isha's not in League, right?
Yes.
Obviously, I like characters that are in the show that aren't in League. I felt like Isha never felt like she really fit with everything else.
Isha was definitely interesting for me because I believe that she did a good thing for Jinx's character in forcing her to be responsible for something.
But it was weird to have a whole character that's just like a plot device, right?
She does basically exist as a plot device. She kind of does. But it's like, she did things for Jinx, obviously, that just... It's kind of like they decided they needed that character because Silco wasn't going to cut it.
Right.
And I talked about this. I talked about this, Isha's the only time that Jinx really has to mourn someone's death. Because for everybody else, they either become, kind of not her fault or she doesn't have to deal with it. Like, her parents, she was so young, and then Vander kind of adopted her and Vi right away. So she didn't have to deal with, the idea of being parentless ever. And Vi kind of half-raised her, let's be real. And then when Vander died, she right away had Silco right there, who was able to... who wasn't going to, encourage mourning.
Right.
That particular...
But you have a moment when Silco died, right? Because he gets her little, letting his body out into the water.
Well, she does, but then just, an episode later, she's talking to his chair. Right. And then and even when she's in prison, before Vi comes and lets her go, he's outside the prison talking to her. So it's like she never actually does let him go, even though there is that scene that seems very symbolic of her actually letting him go. She doesn't ever actually do it. Silco's still with her. She has not properly... And when she talks about stuff, she'll be like, and then someone had to go and gun you down, you know? She doesn't even take...
She's very, impersonal about it.
She doesn't take responsibility for the fact that she killed him. Whereas I think she definitely takes more responsibility for the fact that
Isha got killed.
That Isha got killed, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair. I don't... and I think that... with most things in Arcane, the technical execution of it was really good. There's a lot of scenes with Isha that are really well done.
But if stuff could have been cut in the name of,
Yeah, she just felt very, extraneous. She felt unnecessary. Extraneous. Yeah. To me. It felt like she... And in a way that none of the other non-lead characters did. Mel never felt oh, this is just a character that was, invented up out of nowhere. But I think that Isha being this, really important to Jinx character that doesn't exist in the lore but also is was just kind of quite literally dropped on her in the middle of season 2 just felt kind of strange to me, and I never quite maybe bought their dynamic.
Yeah, I don't know. I loved the Isha Jinx Savika dynamic.
I did like that dynamic.
That was a good dynamic.
But I think this is more because I like Savika than because I like Isha. Like,
I love Savika.
yeah, and I mean, I think that in general, like, I can recognize that, like, Isha plays an important role in, like, being a personal draw for, like, the Jinx movement or whatever that happens. And I think that was, like, overall reasonably well handled. I don't know. It just felt like a character that just kind of dropped out of nowhere and then, exploded
died.
Herself and, like, it was like, okay.
It didn't really matter to anyone but Jinx because we never see Vi mourning her.
Right. Vi's just like, here's this weird kid that my sister's towing around.
And also we don't see Savika ever mourning her, who would have been the other character who would have cared about Isha dying.
Right.
Because they just kind of drop Savika until they need Zonice, and then they show her on the council, which
is a very good conclusion.
I'm good. I'm glad that she's on the
really
council because she'll just be like, that's bullshit. Every single thing.
Yeah, I will say, Savika wasn't super duper present in the back half season, especially. Everything they did for her, I loved. I mean, she gets her like fight with Smeech, which is great, and it's like one of the best fight scenes there, even though it's relatively inconsequential, like ultimate just killing this kind of annoying Cambaran character. But it's a cool moment, and like obviously it's important for like showing her and like Jinx sort of finding a way to reconcile, right, in the wreckage of like Silco being gone. And like I think that having her end up on the council is like a really, really good place to bring the Zahn and Piltover conflict at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, because it was like when I was thinking about who should end up being a leader in the show by the end. It was like before Mel turned into a sorcerer or whatever, into a mage. It's kind of like Mel obviously is a very good politician, and I think that she genuinely does have people's interests at heart, while at the same time being just very good at being a politician. Mm-hmm. And people can't handle the fact when it's kind of like, Mel can be, a manipulative, terrible person at times. And it's like, that's not necessarily an insult. It's just saying
right. Well, I think that's kind of the whole thing, is showing that that's necessary to sort of, right, that Jayce is this sort of like, really like honest idealist.
I'm just gonna tell people the truth about how I feel.
And it's gonna work, and she's kind of like, that's not gonna fly. Like, you've got to find a way to like package things in a way that people are gonna find acceptable. And
I mean, the first time we see her, she's basically picking out what toy she's gonna give the other councilman in order to make him like her a little bit more. Yeah, like that was her character.
Yeah. But no, I mean, Savika's great because her whole thing has always been about sort of like bang the drum for like Zahn as like a nation, and
I think that in season 1, of course, she was painted as like kind of a bad person for abandoning Vander,
but she also sees, and then I want to be clear that I heard this from like someone else on YouTube. Okay, so they put it well. So I'm gonna paraphrase what they said, which was like, like she is loyal, but she's loyal to like Zahn, right? And so it's like, she follows Vander until Vander stops fighting for Zahn because he's protecting his kids, and she turns to Silco. And she'll follow Silco until Silco stops fighting for Zahn because he's protecting Jinx, right? And like, she's actually very consistent in that she will do back whoever is the best shot at like Zahnite independent rule, right? And it's like having her end up on the council, I think, is a great place to leave her character at the end. It's a good payoff for the work that she's put in.
Yeah, it is. She's great. I love her.
She also has the best fight scene in like both seasons because I think I loved the Smeech fight, and I love her fight with Vi in season 1 where he gets her arm ripped off at the end of it. Is probably my favorite fight there. So
I love those simple fights.
That's true. Well, that one also has that really great moment where they like take a break and Vi like chugs whiskey and chugs the glass and like they have to like time out, but they still hate each other.
I need a drink. Stay there.
But yeah. So okay. So we talked about Isha and talked about the Black Rose and everything.
Yeah, kind of what could have been pruned. But
great.
But yeah, it just felt like there was so much, and like then you were talking about like more characters being introduced, and then it was, it really did feel like there was so much that could have been just pushed into season 3, and that way they could have added those character moments. Like, what I think about a lot is that scene where they're at the opera and Mel is pointing out, like, all the different things to Jayce. Like, this is how you do the job now. And then it shows that progression for him, which was just, yes, it was a montage in a way, but it also was a really nice show of kind of like, yeah, no, actually, look at the politics it built over. Like, the show was treating us as intelligent human beings to be able to understand that it's like, okay, you don't get on the council and then it's just like hunky dory, you know, like it is.
Right.
It is some backstabbing and it is bribery and it is nasty business.
Right.
But then it felt like in season 2, we kind of lost all of those more.
Sort of subtle or political elements.
Subtle political elements, certainly that, subtle political elements, what are they?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And we already talked, I think, or mentioned at least briefly the idea of, like, montage, which obviously the show uses a couple of, like, musical montages as a way to, like, cover ground.
And I don't mind those, but when they happen at the beginning of several episodes in a row, that makes me...
Right, well, again, I think they're technically very well executed. They're like especially like the one about Caitlin like mourning her mother is like really
great.
beautifully done. But it does feel like sometimes it's being used as like just like to shorthand like whole plot threads. Whereas I think the most egregious example is the like Zahn strike team, which like gets set up, and I was like, oh, okay, so this season's going to be about like a Zahn strike team, and it turns out it's like the first episode. Well, the first half of this episode is going to be about that.
Because they have the Caitlin's mom scene, and then they have the Zahn strike team, and then they also have the Jinx movement, and those are all told through song montages.
Yeah, and I think that the first and the last one, no Bob's mentioned. The first one is like developing an emotional.
That one felt really
more,
well, and resulted in charcoal. That was gorgeous.
Yeah, and the last one I didn't mind as much either. The like Jinx movement, because it's more about showing a broad. Here's how things are changing in the city. So it's not actually representing a long period of time, but it's trying to show you change in a lot of different.
Well, it is change over time. It is kind of like when you get like here's a musical montage of the 70s, and you see like, you know, all the various political movements.
Right. To me, it felt like more perfect. I think the strike team was a very cool one. Felt like it was just kind of being like, yeah, they do cop stuff a bit, and it like, and then they have like one scene of like being a strike team, and then it's like that whole idea goes away. Loris is let's talk about. Can we talk about Loris and Maddie really quick?
Yeah, just real quick. It feels insane that like first of all, I thought that was gonna be like half the show was gonna be them searching for Jinx in the special strike team.
That's how I felt too. Yeah.
It just feels insane that I had to like kind of be listening. Like, okay, I'm gonna learn what this guy's name is, because apparently these people must be good at their job, cops, to all of a sudden be in this special strike team, but I have no idea what that... Who is Fishboy? I
think his name is Steb. They don't say their names very much, which, in fairness, is realistic. Like, most people do not refer to each other by name a lot, but it was
just like... They just all of a sudden became part of this special strike force for 5 minutes, and then no longer were. And then it was like, oh, but Maddie goes along with the idea of...
We should start with Lori and then Loris, and then we'll talk about Maddie. So Loris is really weird.
Oh, shit.
Because, like, he's introduced where Vi's, like, drunk, and she, like, bumps into him. And the way that it's, like, she, like, touches his boot, and then, like, he drops into frame.
I thought he was going to be, like, a Vander kind of...
Well, when I saw him, like, the way he's introduced, I was, like, because they, like, hit his face at first, and he, like, drops into frame, and I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to recognize this guy. And... I say this especially as someone who has played League, that I was like, is this a character that I've forgotten about?
Another cop that I've forgotten.
Like, is there, like, am I supposed to and I don't think I am, unless I'm seriously missing something. I think he's totally from scratch. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? And I was like, I guess he's just some random drunk guy, which was accurate at the time. But then, because he's there, they put him on, like, the special strike team.
Like, we're going to ignore all the bottles around your
That's
feet.
all you have to do to get on the elite strike team, is show up for, like, one disaster. And they're, like, boom, on the force. Like,
you are on the special strike team.
Which I don't want to get too much of this, because, like, I don't really like to, like, nitpick over, like, plot hole, like,
you
type
do,
stuff.
Actually.
Well, I don't care that much about, like, logic things. Like, I get when it, like, serves a story or whatever. It just felt, like, weird, because it was just, like... It felt like he was pushed into being a character, like, really suddenly, and I was kind of like, okay, but then we'll like backfill, and then we didn't.
No, he was just X-charactered.
He was just
honestly the guy who had to like go through the entire character arc of I will have the bravery to go pull the lever that Loris was not able to because he got shot had more of a character arc
Right,
than Loris did.
Right, Loris like shows up while Vi is like gambling the pits, which also I was confused by, and then he just like dies in the final battle, and like he's not like a like. I don't know. I don't mind him for where he is, but I felt very baffled. Again, I felt like I was supposed to know him previously, and I didn't. It was like
Am I supposed to feel sad?
it was really strange.
Well,
and
it felt that way for all three of them, honestly. And I know that Maddie had like her alternate purpose.
let's talk about Steb second. We should leave
okay,
Maddie
we're gonna
for
talk about Steb.
So Steb, I actually think was handled totally appropriately because he's a minor character who has some characterization, and it's fine. Like he's an existing cop. He plays a pivotal role in saving the day during the attack, during the memorial, and so it makes sense that Caitlin handpicks him for the strike team, and he has existing credentials. He plays a role there, and then he's also in the final battle with the rest of the Piltover Strike Force. Yeah. And it doesn't feel like he ever like oversteps his bounds into like main character territory. We don't know much about him.
We don't know his name.
But he's a minor character, and he's a character that we do know, and I have like a little bit of a sense of like, you know, peril for him. Like I have a sense of liking him from like his appearance, and yeah, it's like, oh no, fish boy, right? And that's enough, right? Like not every character needs to be super fleshed out. Okay, now Maddie. I hate what they did with Maddie. I hate how her whole thing was executed. Like, because she's introduced as this like cutesy like.
I'm a cop with an accent.
You
know what? You should have known that they were gonna go bad because whenever they've got like the heavy accent like that, it's just like I'm a cutie with an accent.
You should be careful. Be careful. Well, I'm saying you be careful with how you phrase this. I'm not sure people with heavy accents are untrustworthy. Is the
in the League of Legends universe?
I don't know, but. Anyways, I honestly I thought she was gonna die because I was like, okay, she's like super cute, cinnamon roll character.
I mean, you were right.
I was right. I was like, she's gonna die at some point. Like that was just how I felt about. Like it just seemed like she would just have to be a character that was like made painful by dying. And then instead they have her do betrayal, right? And she's like, haha, I only slept with you.
I was only lesbian for
Noxian reasons, and then. She's just like instantly offed, and it's.
You know, I kind of. How did she die again? It like rebounded off a shield.
Mel kills her by like rebounding her bullet.
Okay.
And the thing about it is.
I just kind of knew that. Oh, she died. Okay.
So I guess a few things. First of all, I absolutely hate like betrayal moments where it feels like they just took a character and like took him out and replaced him with like a different character, which is how I felt about Maddie because. Like, yeah, I guess, yeah, there's argument, like, that there's hints of it. Like, she's, like, the first one to, like, start beating her chest when they're saluting to Mbessa, and it's like, well, that could be it. But also there are moments where she's, like... I
called her sussy when she was in bed with Caitlin, but, you know, I couldn't decide whether it was just, like, my Kate Vi, like, bias, or if it was, like, did this line genuinely bother me? Or do I just not like that Maddie's the one in bed with Kate?
Right. Well, and like, but even like when she was comforting Kate, she's like, oh, you can stop, like, and it's like, oh, she was like reverse psychologying her, and it's like, I don't know, it just.
Well, no, it was actually the first line where it was just like, you know, Mbessa is keeping us safe, you know, and just kind of like come back to bed, and I never liked them as a pairing. Well, I mean, you were never really supposed to be invested in them as a pairing anyway. Mm-hmm. It was so obvious that what Caitlin needed was someone to bounce ideas off of because she doesn't have that person.
Right.
You know, because she has Mbessa who is manipulating her. And then she has Maddie who's just like, you're such a good leader.
Yeah, kind of a psychopath.
You know, so, no, she didn't have Vi who was the one who was challenging her ideals and her way of thinking.
Right.
I mean, and that's her big thing in season 1 between the two of them is that Vi is the one who changes the way that Caitlin sees things.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I can see it. There are, like, hints that, you know, Maddie's not going to be good. But the thing is that she could have totally been straight-laced. And you wouldn't have gone to the end of the show and been like, but what about the hints that she was a traitor? You would have just, like, written those off. And ultimately, the problem I had with doing this, like, traitor reveal is that I didn't care about her at all. Right? It was like, aha, Maddie's a traitor. Oh no, she's dead. And I was like, okay. It felt like such a twist for twist's sake that didn't stick because I didn't care about her as a character, right? There was no...
There was a second ship.
Yes, yeah. Just, is that reference made clear to your viewers, or do we gotta...
We hate Star Wars Episode 9.
Yeah, Star Wars 9 is the worst. You gotta clarify, because out of context, that almost sounds like a 9/11 joke. But, sorry, you can cut that if you want to, but... but
do you mean airplane?
It's like, I don't know, like, whatever.
No, second ship that Chewbacca's on.
Right, there's that moment where
exist.
Chewbacca is getting kidnapped, and then Rey explodes the transport, and then it's like...
No, Chewbacca's
She blew up the second ship, and it was just like, okay, I didn't give a shit regardless. Like,
I want all these characters to die.
Right, like, it felt like, I just, yeah, and so, it was like, when Maddie betrayed her, it was like, okay, this isn't really a character, I'm not invested in their relationship at all, like, you're not really meant to like them as a couple.
Yeah, twist for twist's sake, or just
she's a cute character, but then it's like, oh, she's evil, but that's not really, like, whatever. And she just kind of dies, and it's like I feel like it would have been more effective to just kill her and have it be like, oh no, the cute character died, and that would have felt, I think, more meaningful than this like half-assed betrayal, which, honest to God, I feel like that is there so that you don't feel bad about Caitlyn, like not officially breaking up with her before she fucks Fine in a prison cell. Like, I literally think that having Maddie become a traitor is only there to like unmorally complicate Caitlyn. Like, because...
Yeah, but by the way, I cheated on you. Oh, okay.
Right. Like, because that was kind of messed up, right? Like...
Yeah, I suppose she... I mean, she was, you know, open with Vi about it.
She was open with Vi about it, I guess. I don't know what her relationship status matters at the time, but, like... I don't think it's just there because, like, if she wasn't evil, you might feel bad that Kate was, like, did a not nice thing to Maddie. And so instead she's an evil traitor. And it was like, you know what, I could have lived with Kate being a shitty girlfriend. Like... Yeah,
it's like, you know, Kate's done worse things this season than cheat.
Right, like, it just felt very silly. It was a silly moment that took me out of it a little bit. So I really did not like Maddie and what they did with her.
Fishboy was fine.
I like Fishboy. Well, and I think I could have liked Maddie if they had just played it straight and she could have been a cute minor character instead of feeling this moment that was built up to this,
that you actually, like, then mourned her.
Right.
Well, because it was like, oh, obviously she's a traitor, I'm not supposed to feel sad.
Right, like, that was, like, to me, when she was traded, like, or real the traitor, like, to me, that's in, like, don't emotionally care about this character, like, I don't know.
Okay.
It was just a very...
I know. It was like, with the way that it is, again, a character that I don't know the name of, but it was like, I was more invested, not that I cared, not that I was like mourning him, but I was more invested in the life or death of Mbessa's first-hand dude.
Right, because he's like a guy that we like have seen around.
That we've seen around, and we kind of got his personality a little bit more. He's got the magic room thing.
Yeah,
really
I thought they
cool.
did a good job with him. I thought he was like another like well done minor character.
Yeah, it's like I have no idea what his name
had
is,
his
but
whole
yet
shtick and personality.
And when
and
she's
some kinda
mourning
cool
him
things
and was like, first of all, I was like, why do Noxians dig their graves like this? That's like
really hard.
That's freaking hard.
That's like unnecessarily difficult.
You're making it harder.
I guess they want to be standing up, but
kind of like, if you die, we have to dig your grave.
Yeah.
And you know how much we're gonna hate doing that, so don't die.
Yeah, no, but I thought he was reasonably well. Like, I thought he was a cool minor character.
Yeah, he was well done.
Okay, cool. Are we missing anything? What did we not go over at this stage?
Let's see. I guess going over, well, kind of those last three conflicts. Kind of Mbessa versus...
Kate and Mel.
versus...
Right. There's a whole bunch of, like, space cuddling that we need to...
Okay, I'm sorry. But when I start going, am I watching Arcane or Madoka Magica? You might be gay.
Yeah, Oh, can I do a minor diverge somewhere else?
Go.
I really like what they did with Sky this season. being the assistant. Because, of course, in the first season, she's eaten by the Hex Core, and it's sort of... She's not a character that Victor seems to care a lot about, but it's kind of a moment of him realizing that, like...
There's certainly, this is my TA, but...
his carelessness has led to the death of this person that he had, you know, like, a relationship with, right?
Yeah.
And, like, she's in the flashback when he's a child and is already kind of interested in what he's doing, and... they have this kind of like one-sided relationship, and it was cool.
Certainly, she had such dreams, Jayce. Yes, Victor, they were of you actually like getting the hint and asking her out. But let's move past that.
Right, and so it was cool to see her back, and sort of them having their like cosmic team up with her being kind of like this. And I like their like conversation about like gender and
yeah, and it's nice that he had someone like to talk to.
Yeah, and then. They also, I really like that moment where he's kind of getting ready to ascend, and he's kind of like saying goodbye to her, and is like, "Look, this is gonna leave you behind," and
I'll miss our talks.
I'll miss our talks.
No, you won't.
You know, you won't. And she kind of realized that she knows that she's never really been that important to him. And
well, I always read it as like he knows and she knows that he's basically giving up on human emotion at that point. So why would he miss her?
Right.
Like that's not going to be part of his thing.
I guess to me, I also kind of read it as like her recognizing that like.
She never was that important.
She was never...
I've been a stand-in this entire time.
Right, or just kind of like, your ambition exceeds me, right? Like, you know...
So there's a lot of ways I can
I've been fascinated by you. And I like it because also, it actually, despite what I'm describing, it feels very empowering for her, right? That, like, she gets to leave kind of telling him off and is like... No, you never really cared about me, and you're lying to me now to make me feel better. Bye. And she, like, sails off, and he's kind of, like, left with that, right? And it feels like a fitting, like...
No, it is...
punishment for him, frankly,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I like Victor, but, like, he is an asshole to
he is,
this guy.
He is.
But,
well, I mean, not catching on that the girl's flirting with you. That's not bad. That's not a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
Also, her death is not on him either.
Well, yeah. I guess I mean more like in that moment where he's just like he's just like lying to her, right? He's like, I'm casting you aside so that I can like pursue higher ambitions, right? And
like
she's like,
sorry, I have to become, you know, an inhuman machine now to head the glorious evolution. And but I'll miss you.
Right, yeah. No, he kind of deserves to be brought down, in fact, for that. And, no, I think that's a really, really well done. In general, I really liked everything they did with him. And then obviously he ends with Jayce, and like arguably it's a little corny that they like reconciled instead of just like killing each other or whatever. But I liked it. I liked the reconciliation.
Hey, Jayce killed him.
Jayce did kill him at least once. But I felt like more importantly, I bought the reconciliation. Like I felt like when Jayce tried to bring him back, I was like, yeah, that seems...
This feels real. Yeah.
Like that could work. Obviously, introduces this whole parallel dimension, time travel stuff.
It doesn't parallel dimensions and time traveling, which always...
A lot of plot weirdness that comes from that, but...
But I mean, that actually seemed straightforward to me, actually. It was like the one thing that actually like...
Right, he's the mage who saves Jayce, and he gives him a rune. And in particular, in this timeline, he gives him the acceleration rune, which matters because it's the one that Echo uses to create the Z drive.
Yes.
Right? And then that's why this is a successful timeline or whatever. And,
yeah, well, and just like, you know, it's like, where did the mage come from? Well, the mage is obviously like, he's from a timeline. He's from this possible timeline where Victor succeeds. Everybody is turned into either these Pompeian ashen figures or
I assume those other ones are the mechas that existed beforehand.
Or the mechas, yeah. Which I assumed were made of the people from the commune.
That's what I figured. Those are the commune members that were already mechas before the great.
Yeah. Oh, real quick. Were the commune people alive before Victor got shot through the chest?
I think so.
I think so too.
They had a semblance of their own personality and stuff.
Yeah, and it's the people in the comments keep trying to tell me that what's his face, the blonde Sallow was not alive when Jayce smashed him with his hammer. And I'm like, no, he was alive.
Right.
Jayce murdered a person.
Yeah, so I mean, I do think, like, obviously that's kind of weird, because, like, Victor can, like, talk through them, but, like, they do seem to have he has a distinct personality, because Victor, like...
And his personality is agreed, not the same as it was when we last saw him. But it also makes sense that that would be his personality now.
Right.
Someone who's been humbled. Someone who was actually like, oh, I do want to hit up something. I know what I want to hit up. Someone who, actually knows Victor, because Victor's been in with the council before as the, second Hex Tech person.
Yeah, I didn't feel like the commune members, like, obviously, like they gave up some stuff, like, they have, like, Victor can, like, hear your thoughts, so, like, that's weird.
That's a thing, yeah.
And, like,
but he can...
they've given up, like, privacy, but they seem to still be their own people, and that changes when he does right, that's kind of the whole point of his transition, was being like, I'm just going to turn them essentially into puppets or whatever, right?
Yeah, and I think that if they were undead walking people who didn't have to breathe...
I mean, they don't breathe, I don't think, because...
I think they do breathe.
Well, because, I mean, the thing where when they're in the Hexcore chamber, it's always super cold, and you can see their breath.
No, if you go back, I actually went back through that just to check. That only happens after Jayce has, like, shifted because of the Hexcore. When he's had one of his moments where he goes, ugh.
Okay.
Then he will have cold breath. But then he doesn't.
Okay.
So, like, it only happens after that.
Regardless, whether or not they breathe, I don't actually think is that important. Whether or not they're alive in a universe that has magic, right? I mean, like, they might be magically suspended or whatever, but they seem to be their own people.
Yeah, it's like, they're not zombified. It's just, like, I could not believe the idea that Victor, who was just, like, yes, I've known Vander for 0.5 seconds, but I'm going to decide that he's willing to give up, like, the entirety of the rest of my energy to try to drag him out of this.
Right.
Like, you're not selling me on the that guy is like, and I'm also creating a zombie horde out of all these people that I healed. Like, I think that if he was doing anything to them, it was not intentional.
Right, yeah. Well, and I mean, like, obviously, the whole point is that, like, because Vander's already, like, healed or whatever, right? But then it's, like, when he, like, fully transforms him, that's when, like, the Vander part gets, like, overwritten, right? And that's kind of the point. So I think they did have their own stuff going on. I mean, they're kind of, like, weird, but not any weirder than, like, most born-again Christians. Like, right? Well, like, most people who've, like, been in a really low spot and then, like, brought back by, like, I mean...
The grace of God, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty normal, actually, that they have a pretty distinct personality shift or whatever. And
yeah.
So, yeah, I will say, well, I largely bought, Victor's walking back from the brink from Jayce. I did not... I think Jayce's handling of the whole situation was not top tier. So...
I love that he, like, finds, like... Mage Victor, right, who has obviously continued to exist after he caused the apocalypse for who knows how many years.
Right.
He even, like, that was the position that Jayce put himself in before he thought Victor was going to kill him, was with the hammer resting against it. He was, like, about to recreate that future which he'd found.
Right.
And so this was obviously Mage Victor, and this is how I made sense of it, is, like, basically the Machine Herald does what he set out to do. Everybody's perfect, but then it's like, obviously he's so still intricately tied to the Hexcore and the Arcane that, he's basically able to Machine Herald himself over time and kind of figure out how the space-time thing works. And then he goes and he checks out all the timelines, all the possibilities, and is like, oh, well, looks I'm tied to this moron in every single one of them.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's how I interpret it too. I just feel like, so he gets this mission from Victor, future Victor, who's like, go back and stop me. And he's like, okay, I won't fail.
I won't fail.
And that's a good
Watch me shoot you through the chest.
And right, he gets back, and he's like, Sallow, and Sallow's like, I'm with Victor. I'm grabbing these buckets of magical water for Victor.
And Victor's like, come talk to me. I made someone... I'm not mad at you anymore. The divorce can be over. It's okay. Come talk to me. I made all these discoveries.
And Jayce is like, I'm going to murder you with my hammer. And it's like, what the hell? And I felt like that's the things where it was like...
And then he goes straight to the commune and just...
and just murders Victor. And first of all,
that's
I don't know...
from future you!
I don't know why they bother having security at the gates if they're all just going to let this guy, this like crazy lunatic with a magic gun hammer...
Well, like he stuck in through the side.
Yeah, you're right. He didn't. That was Imbessa's critical mistake. She didn't think to go anywhere besides the front door.
She didn't bother to look for a window.
That's
Yeah, that front door being
classically the natural weakness of Noxians is they don't know to walk around the side of the commune.
Also, front doors that are guided by
one guy.
One dude who says, "No weapons!"
Yeah.
I can't do it.
So I thought that was wild, that it was like, Jayce shows up and he's just like, naturally the only way to convince Victor is to shoot him in the body. Instead of being, because like, I don't know, I feel like you could have been like, hey Victor.
It's time for my Jayce baby girl.
I've been to an alternate dimension and
I
saw.
I would never lie to you because we're partners.
Yeah, and
I'm
here's
sorry.
and I have some evidence in the form of my weird messed up hammer thing that you can see, and the runes embedded in my arm.
Yeah,
and
and also like you're able to like touch people and see their memories now or whatever.
Right, so you can actually verify that it's true if you want to. Right, yeah, and you can see that your future self exists and that this all happened and that it was bad. And I feel like Victor might have been like, huh. Oh. And I think that like I actually think that even from there's a chance they could stop a falling out. Right, that Victor could say. Well, that's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm going to do. Like, look at the commune. Look at the future you saw. This is a good place, Jayce. These are different things, which is true.
Just because you're so pissed at me doesn't mean that this is
right, and I think there could have been room for them falling out. But I feel like Jayce is made to act kind of irrationally.
Just for shock value.
Well, in order to get him and Victor on bad terms. I think that's probably the weakest part about their story, is that like Jayce's actions post alternate dimension just don't really make sense.
Well, because they need Jayce to do that in order to actually turn
Victor
Machine Herald, and that's why I think again I'm going to be on the season 3 thing. I don't think they would have needed to do something that extreme if they just allowed him to kind of morph into that by himself. But now that we are Joe with his jingle bell. While we are on the subject, I think themes of the and I can talk about this a little more easily than you can. But when we talk about kind of ableism and the concept of healing and of course what that means for Victor. Because for a lot of him, which is this different from in League? Like so much of it is about healing himself, right? Because obviously when we get introduced to him in season 1, he's got a bad back. He has to wear the brace around, his chest. He has to wear the brace around his leg. He has a cane. And as of like episode 4 or 5, he's now dying.
Right.
Because of the toxins that built over spills into Zon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that in League, like, there is sort of a general focus on, like, the like, self-improvement, but I don't, honestly, I don't remember there being a significant aspect of being about, like overcoming disability or curing illness, necessarily. It's just, like...
Yeah. So then we get to the idea of, like, well, when it comes to curing disabilities, like, obviously, we don't like it when disabilities exist in the world, right? Like, we don't like when people have cancer. We don't like when people have any illnesses. That's why we, set up funds to, try to get rid of them. But,
sure.
For Victor, for me, the question is always, like, where's where you jam your ice pick in on the slippery slope of what counts as something that should be fixed,
sure.
But versus something like, obviously when he makes them all into robots, that's everything. Like, you don't even need to be human anymore. You don't need emotion. You don't need, which is a huge leap from, I think, the commune, which is, let me fix what is mostly, let's be real, junkies.
Right, yeah, essentially drug addicts, and he cures the boils on them and other stuff, yeah.
He does do stuff like cure their eyesight, which is an interesting thing about Skye, is she's never wearing her glasses. Yeah,
well, also the gatekeeper guy, because he always wore glasses.
He always wore glasses, yeah. Which... So, characters that wore glasses... So apparently eyesight is just something that we should fix. And I think
most people wear glasses.
Handy,
I agree with you.
I do wear glasses.
I know you do it. I mean, would you see without glasses?
But
be good?
It's but it's like I brought up in one of my videos, which I don't know if everybody watching this will watch that one. But like when I was 16, the idea that someone could have gone and made me straight would have been super cool to me, because then I wouldn't have been facing the bullying and all that stuff. Sure. And my life would probably be marginally easier right now. Not gonna lie.
That's fair. I think there's a lot of
but,
blurry lines. Like I think that a lot of the deaf community is one that's in a really kind of blurry place where like.
So it's like a lot of these communities where it's like, ooh, you have something wrong with you, or society thinks that there's something wrong with you for some reason. It's just a lot of things that some people would say, oh, that's something wrong with you, but yet it's part of your identity and you wouldn't want to change.
Right, or like autism would be another.
That would be
example.
another. Yeah, I mean, like, so I think there's obvious like times that there is a disability that is like, yes, get rid of this, bad, no, bad, just get rid of it. But then other times it's like, no, actually, that this is actually kind of part of my personality. Maybe it makes my life more difficult, but it is part of who I am. Don't get rid of it.
Right.
And so, like, so Victor obviously comes down on the hard side of let's make everybody into soulless robots.
Well, eventually, right? I mean,
eventually. Well, no, I mean, he takes about a day to make a shift.
Okay, that's fair. He does get killed in the middle, which is pretty.
He does die.
It's a pretty big transition, but. Which I mean, I think that happens because Jayce kills him, right? Because that's where he's all like, "Oh, emotion is the problem, right?" And
emotion is the problem.
It's this illusion of Jayce,
I'm sorry. I'm just like.
His boyfriend killed him, and he's like, nobody's gonna feel things ever again.
Nobody. I said, please come talk to me, Jayce. I said, come visit me, Jayce. What does he do? He comes and he kills me. You know what? Love is out. Love is out. You know what? Emotional, they're gone. No. I don't want to hear it, Doctor. I don't want to hear it.
Also, I guess we haven't discussed this explicitly, but you ship Jayce and Victor, I assume.
What's there to ship except two people who are like inextricably bound across all universes,
Sure.
all possibilities? Like at some point, they are like obviously each other's like. I mean, you can say I'm say soulmates, but it could be platonic.
Sure. Yeah. I've seen some, discourse TM about, like, whether or not that's canonized or whatever. I know, like, creators have weighed in on
I don't give a fuck. I
will say that I think that...
Victor is ace, that does not mean aromantic.
Right, I was going to say, I mean, when they were, like, naked space cuddling with each other, I was like... That's pretty gay. Or at least if you want to read it as romantic, I think you're well supported in that reading.
Yeah, if you were like, it's brotherly, and it's like, I'm going to say, you're my brother. If you want to like grab my head and like do the forehead touch, and then I'll grab onto your arm like that. No, that's gay, man. You don't do that to me.
This is a really minor thing, but when they're in their like naked space cuddling mode, and their hair is all like white. I thought it was really weird that his beard doesn't.
Well, I always thought that was like, I thought that was how it was gonna go because Victor always had like those really dark expressive eyebrows, and he keeps those.
Okay, that's fair. So the rules just.
They were like, Jayce looks better with facial hair.
But they weren't wrong. No. Does he look better with facial hair? I don't know. It's a more. He looks pretty unhinged with his facial hair.
He does, but I think he looks better. I think the picture on this is like right after he kills
I think it is pretty much the most unhinged picture they could find for that. Yeah, which would increase the effect, but
yeah, it is. Victor deciding post being shot by Jayce that
nobody's allowed to feel emotions anymore.
No more emotions.
I feel it, Victor.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I felt so bad because it's just like Victor has no idea what he's doing wrong and Jayce is just hating on him.
Right. Yeah, I really feel like when he spoke to future Victor and future Victor was stop me, that wasn't really what he had in mind. Like
future Victor's watching this from like some hidden thing. He's like, that's not what I was thinking.
He's like, I'm not an animal. Like, you can still talk to me.
Rational communication.
Yeah. So that was brutal. So, yeah. I guess anyways, to wrap up that whole, I liked it. I felt it could have been its own season or its own show. Yeah.
But then so the robots obviously no emotion, that's bad. But
sure.
Just because I saw the discourse TM about this line, of course, is you were never broken, Victor. there's beauty in imperfections.
Mm,
And it's
okay.
like, oh, okay, so is the show saying that we should just, like, embrace when we have a disability? Or, like, because, of course,
Right.
it's like, no, we shouldn't.
Right,
Like, if you feel like you have a bad leg or a terminal illness, you're allowed to be, like, pissed about that.
Right, and attempting to fix it isn't like foregoing
Your humanity.
And even I think with a lot of the more, like we talk about sort of like fuzzy things, like I feel like this is, I mean, there's an open
Go.
works, but it's like, I mean, obviously they're like, especially with like mental illness, this is a really like fuzzy thing where it's like I think people, especially when they're thinking about getting medicated, right, there's often a fear of like, I'm not going to be myself after I get it anymore, but also like for a lot of people, it's like,
Medicated is the only way that I am myself again.
right, exactly. And it's like, I think that sometimes, and I mean, I don't want to do with like, I don't want to focus on like really niche discourse as being like, and blow it up. But like, I think there's folks of like, you know, be yourself, you know, do like natural things or reject this, need to improve. And people are like, well, actually, you know, I think that, at least for me, like, this makes me into a person I like better. It makes me into someone who can function. Right, and it's like
I like it when my serotonin.
right, yeah. Like I feel
Right.
like you're telling me that I should like suffer because it's natural, right? Or that there's or that there's it's almost feels like you're putting the burden on me to like suffer through something for the sake of like preserving the beauty or your purity or whatever, instead of like trying to seek a solution for myself, right? Like I think you're entitled to, you know, view your own situation as an obstacle to be overcome if you feel that way about it, right? I don't think it's fair for other people to tell you that no, you know, that's just how you are and you should be happy with it,
You
right?
should love yourself. The thing that I think saved that line from being not a preachy love yourself sort of thing was that he used the words, "you were never broken." Because obviously we do live in an ableist society. Piltover is an ableist society. Victor very much felt like he was looked down upon. He didn't want to go in front of crowds. He, you know, when he first introduces himself to Jayce, he was just like, yeah, I came here, you know, poor Undercity, poor cripple from the Undercity. You know, he's very much aware of what he looks like to that society. But it's like there's a difference between having a disability and being like fundamentally flawed.
Right.
And I think that's the difference that like Jayce is saying.
Yeah,
like,
and I think it's pretty uncharitable to suggest that Jayce meant by that like actually the fact you were dying was no biggie. Right, but
it was a very diggy, a big dig.
No,
okay?
I think you're right. Like the point was like
I supplanted a magical, unstable hex thing into your chest in order to stop you from dying. But hey, you should have just accepted it.
Right. Yeah, but he's saying where he's like you were like a valid person that was like, you know, like
you're not worth less. You're not broken. There's nothing inherently wrong with you. It's just that there are things that might be different about your physiology, about your, you know, your mental health, your whatever. You might catch a disease, and that just, it makes it so that your life becomes more difficult.
Right, but also just about like emotion, humanity, right? Like
yeah.
the idea that's like you were, you know, sort of like a flawed human or whatever, right? But like purging yourself of emotion isn't the solution to that, right? Like, you know.
So I think that the show can beat the ableist allegations.
Yeah, I think you have to have a very uncharitable reading of it to land on that conclusion.
Yeah.
But,
wait, it's telling me that I have to accept my...
Right. Yeah. No. I think.
Yeah.
That's
I'm just gonna.
sort of looking for problems.
I'm gonna go toss all my meds out. I'm not gonna take them ever again.
I take all my advice from child murderers. That's my main.
Yes, I look at Jayce and I think, what would Jayce do?
Exactly.
And I do exactly what Jayce would do.
When I shoot a kid.
which is shooting a kid, which is smashing an adult with a hammer, which is looking at your partner that you turned into what he is, by the way, and shooting a hole in his chest without like even so much of as a hello.
Yeah, it's anyways.
What else did Jayce do?
I think those
where
are.
are we landing on the TikTok of like Jayce okay, Jayce not, JB not.
Yeah, Jayce is he does some messed up stuff, but yeah, I think killing Sallow and shooting Victor on sight were the two most. Like, as much as they give you on the kid thing, that was at least an accident.
It was an
right?
accident.
Like, he kills Sallow on purpose, right?
Man is just gonna walk away. She's like, going back to my happy life in the commune.
Right. I'm like, I feel like there's steps there between physically preventing him and murder. Like, you could probably take the canister away somehow.
I'm pretty sure that at that point, Jayce, who, like, yeah, pretty much hauled himself up a cliff via upper body strength alone.
Could be capable of wresting a canister away from Robot Sallow.
from little, robot zombie, whatever. No, I don't know. Sallow's like, he's like as skinny as Victor is.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he's already super strong with the leg. I don't know. I mean, we didn't really see any of the commune members, like, acting.
I mean, that would have been funny if, like, Invessa's right-hand man had gone forward and the guy you said the glasses was
just
like
just cracks him. Yeah. I mean,
come on,
I think the fear of that certainly existed, which is why they were didn't try him, but yeah. Anyways, cool. Was there anything else you wanted to kind of go over?
No,
or?
I think we hit up characters, and then I think we talked about the show a little bit. So, I mean, I think basically, long story short, we kind of agree that just, like, a lot tried to happen in season 2, and like, there were stuff could have been taken away, or they could have done a season 3.
Right,
or just stuffed so that these things would have had more impact when they actually happened. Because I feel like even that stuff that was well done, like, I generally consider Victor and Jayce to be well done, even though Jayce did some, sketchy things in there.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think that they would have had more impact if there'd been, like, a whole season of Victor being the Machine Herald. And Jayce, like, continued to be, like, and even at the end it was like, whoa, I've been doing bad things for, like, a while now, and you're still, like, chasing after me?
Yeah.
Why? And then it would have been, like, Victor's the Mage reveal would have been, like, even bigger, because it didn't happen just 2 episodes ago.
Right. Yeah, I really do feel like, as much as I'm like, oh, I like Arcane season 2, I'm like, I would just like better if it was completely different. But, I mean, I do feel like it would have been better if or at least it could have been better if season 2 really just focused on trying to wrap up the, like, Piltover Zahn strife and wrapping up, like, the Jinx Kate Vi dynamic and really poured everything it had into that and left some of that, the Jayce Victor stuff, maybe to be wrapped up in a future season. I'm hesitant to say that because obviously then we might not have gotten it ever, and that would be a shame because I thought it was good. But I think that at least down the line it could have been better developed. We could have dropped the Black Rose storyline totally, because I'll watch what they put out next because Arcane is really good.
I mean, they could have, of course, included it if they had, like, a season 3, because then there would have been more time to explore it, but...
I mean, honestly, I still don't think I really liked it, just because it felt... I didn't like what it did with Mel, but yes, if there was more time, there would have been...
I think that Mel, as a mage, had... Yeah, no, sorry, not to, like, get into an argument as we're wrapping up, but I think Mel, as a mage, has, like, interesting... First of all, has really interesting parallels... because of what then it makes her with Victor. Because then it's like Jayce is such a type, oh my god.
You're right, he likes mages. Apparently.
No, he's just like, you know what, if they don't glow in a certain color and, like, become more powerful than God themselves, then I'm just not into them.
He likes that.
I like those upper level beings. I like knowing thoroughly where I am in my place in a relationship, and it is as the lower form.
Yeah. No,
but I think that her being a mage and having to, like, come to terms with having that sort of power, but also then I would have liked her to stay Mel, though.
Right, because she's kind of like, she doesn't start. We're kind of getting off track, trying to wrap it up. But regardless, they could have either cut the Black Rose stuff or spaced it out more or whatever. It wouldn't have felt like it was taking so much time out of a season. It already had a lot of ground to cover, which it did. I think Echo's whole storyline also potentially could have been pushed to a future season, or he could have potentially built the Z Drive this season, but not had his, like, kind of climax as a character. at this point. We could have had more development on like the firelights, on on the piltovers, on conflict, on some of the relationship building between characters, and maybe I don't know, maybe push on that stuff. I mean, it's hard even because at that point it's such a different show, but
I don't know. I mean, if I was to take just exactly what happened and just say, you know what, let's just stretch it. Let's just stretch into 2 seasons. I know it is hard, and that sucks. That's the thing about streaming these days, is that when these shows don't know if they're going to get a season 2 or a season 3. And so they have to be like, okay, well, I guess let's stuff everything in here as much as possible, because otherwise it might not happen. But if they'd known that they were going to get a season 3, then, and they decided to do the same beats, like the same basic plot, I would have ended season 2 with, having probably have Echo at least have him stuck in the other timeline, because that can be his dun 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 moment. So that gives him and Heimerdinger something to do, because Heimerdinger has been pinged out of existence.
Right.
Have Victor turn into the Machine Herald, so he can actually be the big bad. And I don't know, maybe I would still cut the Black Rose thing.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is like it just doesn't really do anything. Like that is the easiest change you can make. It's literally just like,
yeah. And Bessa is still a really cool villain, and I like her, but then she could have been more of a season 2 problem.
Right. Yeah. Anyways, I mean, there's a lot of that you could go over of, and like how to restructure. I think there's like a lot of options, but
there is. But I would have given, for someone who it felt like they were definitely building up for Victor to be the big villain.
Which is weird because he doesn't know any of the main characters.
And then
like,
it just doesn't happen.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think we agree it's a little, just a little bit too much crammed in. I think there's some obvious small things that we've done to improve it. I think there's also a future where it's stretched out into like 3 seasons, or even like just like its own show or something.
Yeah, like I mean, yes, there's the version that is Cut Your Darlings, where it probably would have gotten rid of possibly Mbessa and Mbessa altogether.
Well, I wouldn't, or just kill Mel at the end of season 1, and then just,
that's my wife.
I mean, I liked Mel, but I'm just saying,
okay,
she's not doing the Black Rose stuff.
Cut the Black Rose. Unpopular opinion, but cut Isha probably.
Cut Isha, maybe. Or replace Isha with something else.
Replace Isha with something else. I don't know. Give Vi something, because I don't feel like Vi was much of an active agent in anything.
Yeah, that's true.
She was either it was really emotional, and I'm glad that she got Vander back for a little bit, but then she just lost him again, and then it was like, and then she loses Jinx, and it's like, okay, well, at least I have my girlfriend.
Right, yeah.
It's like, are you still an alcoholic? I hope not.
Yeah, Vi suffers
Vi just gets nothing nice. Here, yeah. So, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that could have either just, just kill your darlings, get rid of a lot of stuff, or just hope to hell that you're going to get a season 3 if you leave enough cliffhangers there. Yeah. But overall, it's still better than most of the stuff coming out.
Yeah, it's still great. I mean, I like season 1 a little better just because I think it had better pacing.
It had time to breathe. I think that's the.
But it was still very good. I'll watch whatever other show they put out next because I'm still very confident it'll be good. And I mean.
And I'm a rewatcher, so I'll rewatch Arcane.
Yeah, and I need to stress that like, pretty much all of my complaints about the show have to do with like macro level stuff, but like to the moment to moment, it's really, I mean, the sort of the style, the animation. I think the dialogue is overall really well written. The soundtrack is really excellent.
Sorry. I have to say I have the most amazing video that I found that someone was actually dissecting the soundtrack. I'm going to link it above. I think everybody should watch 20 minutes and will enrich your life and your experience of what you know about just the not the singing music, although that's all really fun.
Yeah.
But just the score, and how you can find the score snuck into little bits and pieces all over the place. Where you can find the hex text score is kind of just slowed down and then stuck right here. It's It's really fun.
Yeah.
So I'm going to link that above. That's a great video. I really recommend it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the technical execution is top-notch, and, I mean, that'll carry you a long way. And I hope that, you know, whatever the next project are, they might have... And the creators seem to express that they feel like they've learned as well and are, you know, from feedback. I mean, that being said, it's like... Even that thing's a little silly, because it was still really good, right? It wasn't like it was like... This was some, you know...
Yeah, no, it's
great
like,
in theory, terrible execution. Like, it was still good.
We would not be talking about it if it wasn't good.
Well, I mean, we talk about Star Wars episode.
We do, but that's just straight up like bitching. So you know.
But no, I mean, I'm excited for whatever they do next. I think I'm interested to see how they develop Noxus, which like is definitely a region that like they've been doing work already in the past years to like make it a more nuanced nation than just like the evil empire.
Certainly by making Mbessa a character.
Mbessa a character, but also with some of like the shorts they put out around like Legends of Runeterra and stuff that like seem to paint Noxus as like more of a meritocracy as opposed to just like a just generic evil empire kind of thing. So I'm interested to see what they do with it, and I'm not even really sure like what aspects that they're going to cover, but
hopefully Tom Kench is
probably won't because it's not in Bilgewater, but. My particular drum that no one cares about the beat is that they need to do a Shurima show, which is exclusively because I am really into the Egyptian aesthetic.
That's just because you were into Yu-Gi-Oh.
That is true. That's correct. But I think that's there's ripe opportunity for a lot of shows if this continues to be successful and if they continue to find. But yeah, no, it was a very good show, and the only reason that we're able to like talk about it for a long time without it just turning into a bitch fest, is because it was so good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like if you know, if in an alternative timeline we were able to do this, it's like you can't do that when something is just bad. You know, it's like in an alternative timeline where Star Wars Episode 9. We just start over from scratch. Right.
Like that's just...
Yeah, we walk it back 1.5 movies and then start from there.
So let's imagine that 7 just came out.
Yeah. No, it was good, and I think that, you know, they've done such an impressive job, I think, of making this like really interesting cast of characters that exist on all sides. I think that like in general I really like that it has antagonists, but I don't think it has anybody that is just like cartoonishly evil for no reason.
I can't believe
besides Jayce. but like I don't know, like I mean you think about the major antagonists of like Silco and Mbessa and
I can't believe Singe just walked out of there with everything
Singe
he ever wanted.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that.
But he's more of like a minor.
I cannot believe. I don't know. I just gotta hope that me and Victor are having a nice long talk about like anger issues in an alternative universe.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, Jason, now you don't shoot me with your hammer. Let's talk about our feelings.
Exactly.
And okay, last question: is Jinx alive?
I think signs point to yes, right? I mean, there's that shimmer streak, and she's leaving, but like also like there's that whole scene.
I was gonna say one of the first things that Powder ever says is that she's gonna ride on.
Right, it ends in the airship cut, but I think the biggest one is the scene about Caitlyn like looking at like the ducks or whatever. It's like there's not really any reason to insert that unless it's to be like.
Also,
show that Jayce is gonna make it out. Yeah.
This is from the video about the music that I said that you should all really watch because you should. The fact that it is the bridge theme, which is the first thing that Powder is humming when they cross the bridge. Mm-hmm. How when the airship is flying away, it is the bridge theme, but then it just stops mid-song, like it's ready to continue, but somewhere else. Like right. she's getting out of here, where she's not Powder, she's not Jinx, she's.
Yeah, I'm curious if she'll show up in any of the subsequent media they do. I mean,
it'd be funny because I think it would cause like a riot around the world. I hate myself. That's getting cut.
No, leave that in. That's great. That was the highlight.
Anyway, so thanks, folks. So this is again. It's been Josh.
Thanks for listening to us rambling about this for an hour and 44 minutes.
My videos are very long.
Okay, well,
they know that.
That's very used to it for a little bit.
So,
I appreciate it. have me on the chat about it.
That's not my name.
I'm sorry, Kira. You can cut that. My bad. Thanks, Kira. Thanks, Kira, for having me on the chat about it.
So, again, I'm Kira. If you like the video, if you wouldn't mind, dropping a like, it takes a second. Or if you're a repeat viewer, maybe subscribe. It's great. Helps the channel out. And I hope you're doing well wherever and whenever you are. I will see you later. Bye.
Ciao.